Is cold calling dead? 2023, 2024, what's got to change? In this episode, we're going to answer the question if it's dead or not. And if so, what can we do instead? You're going to love this one. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, we're going to talk about cold calling, whether it's dead or not. Should you consider doing it, or should you try to use a different path? My guest today is Gabe Lullo. Gabe actually runs an organization called Alley Hoop. Just like the name, it's a company that helps to tee you up, get you queued up for your big slam dunk. Specifically, they work a lot with pipeline development. They work with founder-led organizations and also large organizations. We're looking for individuals to be able to have on the front lines to be able to help make that possible when it comes to SDR and BDR work. This is why I thought it made sense for me to bring him on a podcast today, especially since our focus is around building pipe. Gabe has this idea in our previous conversation around cold calling. He believes around, I guess I can't really give the answer away, but he has some beliefs around cold calling. Some people say it's dead. Some people say that it's living. Some people say you got to try a different path. Some people say Yahoo and Google killed everything. We talked about that in a previous episode. Make sure to go back and listen to it. But Gabe's going to break down his theory today on his thoughts and give you his answer around this and what's working for him and his team. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, consider subscribing to the show, as well as check out our LinkedIn prospecting course. I promise you're going to love that one as well. As we dive in, you get a chance to learn a little bit more about Gabe and his background. You hear his theories and his thoughts, and you get some specific strategies. Check it out. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Donald, thanks so much for having me, man. I'm a huge fan and excited to be here.
Well, I'm looking forward to this, and thank you. I appreciate that, man. I'm really excited about this conversation, this dialogue, and people having conversations these days around this idea of cold calling. In many different ways, people are concerned about AI taking their jobs, and people are thinking about a pipeline not being filled. There's so many conversations around it, but
right.
Some people saying it's gone away off the earth, though. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that as we dive into this conversation. I bragged about you a little bit in the teaser there. Why don't you take a second and tell us a little bit more about your organization, though?
Yeah, man, I started in sales, right out of pretty much grade school, and started a business focusing on recruiting and training salespeople. Did that for about 10 years and was looking to be inside, right? Really not on the road as much and traveling all the time. And I, was about to have a family and a kid was on the way. So I'm like, I need to do something a little bit more in office and in town, more importantly. So I started working with a company called Inside Sales Team, which by the name is exactly what I was looking for. It's like, don't judge a book by its cover, though this one was exactly what I was looking for by the name of the company. And they really specialize on account executive, work, full cycle sales, AE type agency. And right around the time, this was about 10 years ago, the SDR role really started becoming its own thing, right? When SaaS and tech and data companies kind of invented or reinvented the appointment setter to its own role. And so we doubled down and rebranded, and now our company is called Alley Hoop, which in basketball is really the ultimate assist, right? You put it perfectly up for somebody else to come in and win and get all the credit and slam dunk it. And so that's what we do. We're, a bespoke, white labeled SDR function for large enterprise as well as founder-led sales companies, and that's what we do.
Fantastic, man. Well, you have a lot of knowledge in this space. Then the market right now, for the past year, everyone's been saying, we're going to see a slowdown. We see interest rates rises. Right. People are not going to be willing to spend much. No one's willing to make investments. We'll see people making money, still buying stuff. But specifically, though, I can say it's not as easy as 5 years ago, and people just have tons of cash and they're willing to not even thinking about it. People are making wise decisions. Cold calling, is it dead?
Well, first off, cold calling is absolutely not dead. And I don't come to these calls with opinions because I think opinions are not really valuable. I come with data and stats, right? Our reps are making tens of thousands of phone calls per day. And we have a lot of close friends who have very large organizations that we've built their in-house teams or at least assisted in that. And so we know what they're doing too. And, thousands of data points and calls have shown us that the phone is still the ultimate weapon when it comes to qualification and getting a call to action and getting an appointment on the calendar. So phone is still king in our world, and we do it all. Trust me, we're not just only phone. We're an omni-channel approach. And yeah, you're right, it is harder. But our motto here is we do hard things. And secondarily, I think we have over the years in this bullish market that's no longer in place, everyone is kind of, getting the low hanging fruit, right? And now it's not
Mm.
low hanging anymore. And so we have to, I hate the cliche, work smarter, but we do have to work smarter here. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we're focused on. And that's what our clients like about us.
Well, I'm excited for this. There's two things I want to tap into. We're going so I'll set the agenda, guys. I want to learn a little bit more what's working when it comes to cold
Sure.
calling. So I'm going to tap into that with Gabe. But Gabe, before that, you mentioned a statement in our pre-call. You mentioned something as well, and the average listener probably wouldn't be able to pick up on this. You mentioned we do hard things. I have something to that nature. There's a statement behind it, a story behind that. You mind sharing that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like right now, making phone calls and being relevant and being personable is not easy, right? You have to
Mm.
focus on getting up and being motivated and having grit and absolutely, picking up the phone and being what I like to say, essentially a Jedi master on the phone. And so I think
Mm.
the preparation for doing these things is really what's important. A lot of SDRs and AEs who are self-sourcing to book their own appointments right now, they're not putting in the numbers like they either used to back in the day before, many years ago, or not realizing that the numbers that are needed to be put in to make that hard thing be a result. So right now, we're making, our SDRs are making 200 plus dials per day. And we
Dang.
use technology, of course, to help assist in that. We use AI, we use power dialers, we use parallel dialers, we use different types of tools to allow us to make that happen. But I mean, I remember when I was a kid in my first internship was in New York doing cold calls, and I was calling out of a phone book with a with a real phone that had a wire attached to it, and I was making 250, 300 calls a day with no technology. So we're doing those types of hard things, and that's what I mean by that. And we're absolutely having those conversations.
How do we do it though? You said it's harder these days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is that? Walk us through, so that we're listening to this. I may have a sales team, or I'm an individual contributor, and I'm listening to this call, and I'm like, dude said it's not. It still works right now. You have data to back it up. What exactly is working? What's that motion? Maybe you could break that down over the next 15 minutes or so
Yeah, I
of
mean, it
this
all
episode.
starts with data, but really, data, if you have some sort of, premier provider such as a Zoom Info, an Apollo, a Sales Intel, those data's data right now. Like, there's definitely nuances there, and there's definitely data providers out there that do better than others for different verticals you're in. I always recommend looking at the data provider as what they're best at when it comes to data, because not all data providers are the same. But I can say when you do make that decision on the data provider based on your vertical and your ICP, then you should have pretty good data based on who you choose. So I don't think it's really a data uh, silver bullet solution. So once you have the data, then you really have to have what I call relevant messaging over personalization. A lot of people think personalization means, oh wow, you went to the same college as I did. Now we're best friends. Like that that's not personalization like it used to be. Like personalization years ago is literally that. Referencing someone's favorite
Yeah.
basketball team, right? That's not personalization. And even if you did do that, frankly, your prospect doesn't give a shit, right? It's like, okay, great. We went to the same basketball team. You looked at my LinkedIn. Like that to me is not relevant. It's personal. Relevancy is what matters most right now. And that's why I think the SDR function is so valuable, even in the world of AI, because that human interaction, that human touch, that empathy, and that creation of relevance is what's setting people apart from the low hanging fruit individuals, if you will. Right. So I think that's super important
Hmm.
right now. And then, of course, activity, high volume activity with a relevant message is possible. Usually people say it's one or the other, right? You can't have
How?
both. Sorry, say that again.
I was gonna say how. How is that possible?
Yeah. So again, with technology, so if you have a parallel dialer or a power dialer that's going to allow you to have more conversations, and those conversations are now increased because you're not spending 7 hours or 8 hour day just listening to voicemails all day long. Once you actually get the conversation happening, then that's where you can be truly relevant about what you're saying on the phone. I think that's really what matters. Also, is
Mm,
messaging. Everyone is saying, messaging is going to change in February because of all these different laws and restrictions, regulations. And yeah, there's definitely going to be some shifting. Will there be tools to loophole those things? Of course. But I think it's not the point about whether or not there's going to be spam filters or domains being shut off. I think the big thing that we should be learning from this is that the way in which we're sending and speaking on our emails is what I think needs to change. I tell our
yes.
reps, text or email like you text somebody. If you email somebody like you text somebody,
Come on,
you will
bro.
have a significantly better connection rate, and you will be able to articulate phone conversations. I text people just like I friends and family. I shoot those emails out just like that. And it's about teeing up the phone call. Hey, Donald,
Yeah.
just send you a quick note. I just left you a voicemail. I'm available tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Love to connect. That's my email.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't capitalize it, and I don't put in punctuate. Like my mom's an English teacher. If she'd heard me this,
Oh, she'll probably kill
yeah,
you.
she saw my email, she would destroy me, right? But but if you saw them, you'd be like, oh, that's how I text my friends, right? Or that's how and that's how it works, and that's how you have to, again, not sound like an AI person. Like we have to think about,
Yeah.
don't sound like a robot. And so how do we do that?
Yeah. So go back to, I really like the idea there of the couple things, relevancy. I've been on that train for a minute now. Love it, love it, love it. And the messaging, going back to what you're saying, treat it like texting. Um, and it's literally, I got excited and all pumped when I saw that you mentioned that. If you guys go back and watch the replay of my face there, but I got really excited because it's true. It's literally true, and we've played with that as well. And we saw there's a bigger difference because it's just so much easier to reply to that conversation,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of thinking in it. But it also, like you said, it tees up the next thing. And it's like about, I think it was probably like 5, 6 years ago, Gary Vee was talking
Hmm.
about this idea of like the taking, making a almost like a story across platforms,
Hmm.
so to speak.
Yeah.
So then now it's, yeah, the voicemail is there, but there's sparked the curiosity through email to go back and listen to the voicemail that that you left. And then now if you send a text message or a LinkedIn connection, everything just kind of connects to the other. And if there's a relevant messaging there, come on, money in the bank, bro.
Yeah, and I think it's about, again, creating the human, just sounding like a human and not being that AI bot, and not,
Mm,
choosing the channel, but play all those channels right across all of those channels like Gary Vee talks about, to the story and to the message line. One thing that we're
yeah.
significantly doing, and here's the reality: every single time I do it, I get a response. This is the first thing I hear. Wow, that's amazing! I didn't even know LinkedIn could do this. Wow, that's amazing! This really stands out. Wow, that's amazing. Oh my God, this is so. And all it is, it's a voice note on LinkedIn. We do voice notes on LinkedIn all the time. And every time I do it, 99.9% of the time, I should say, people are more shocked about the tool itself than it is what I'm saying. And they love it and it stands out. But it's relevant to the note that I sent on the email. And it's also relevant to the call that I made, and you follow up. And that's how, again, it's an ingredient, right? You're trying to bake a cake, and the cake is get a meeting on the calendar. But how do you
Yes.
put what's the recipe for that? There's different ingredients: a voice note, a Loom video, right? A quick text based email, a phone call. All of those things are going to warm up that conversation, humanize it, and prevent you from
Hmm.
being just a chat GBT bot.
So doing all of this, running this motion again, this is all prior to your auto dialer,
Hmm.
you're saying?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I just use the auto dialer as the way to get those phone calls out, so
yeah.
you're still able to do that. I mean, I think sequencing is dead right now. I think
Mm.
like the whole
Go deeper into that. Go.
yeah. I mean,
It sounds like you are.
there's tools like there, and I'm not going to knock names because a lot of them use us, or have used us in the past to launch their business. But you know, an an email that is 3 paragraphs on day one, then a phone call on
Yeah.
day two, then a LinkedIn connection request on day three, right? Then another email on day, like, that's a sequence. To me, I think it's It's not the way to do it. You can run all of those
Why though?
channels, but you can run them separately. Making a phone call only list on that ICP and that data set, and then also doing a LinkedIn connection channel, and then also doing an email channel in parallel. And you actually what we call bursting and actually burst the contact, not stalk them or annoy them, but burst them in a way in which you're trying to connect with them and be seen in a shorter period of time through multiple channels. So that story point we were talking about before is going to
Yeah.
get more connection requests and more communication. One thing I also do is I always say I'm not an AI bot. Hey, I'm a real human here. I actually start my conversations with that. Hey, on my voice, hey, Donald, real human here. Just want to cut the noise between all the AI messages I'm sure you're getting on your inbox here on LinkedIn. Listen, I left you a quick voicemail and shot you a quick note. Don't know the best way to communicate with you. I don't know what your favorite channel is, but I'll go that route. Love to get some time on the calendar. And asking them, what is your
Mm,
favorite way to communicate? Is it email? Is it
yeah.
text? Is it LinkedIn?
Love it. So the idea there I find fascinating. Getting them engaged into it, even if they don't necessarily know all the true value yet. But it's
Yeah.
like it's easy to answer that question. Yeah, my platform. Better communicate on email. What is it? What's up? Send me an email. But at least I got a conversation with you, and at least I got some kind of an engagement or interaction. I can give you what you want. You mentioned the sequencing have died. I have my theory on that, or it's not as effective anymore. Why? Why is it do you feel that the traditional sequences are not doing as effective?
Well, I think a lot of the sequences start with an email. And I think
Mm,
I know there's some people out there who have a very interesting opinion on this, where all sequences to start with a phone call. Once you have a conversation with somebody, then you put them into a sequence. And I think that is something that I think is overlooked, as opposed to just sending
mm,
out all these emails and then following up with a phone call. I just think, again, it maybe the sequencing is just too far spread out and it's not hitting people's channels all at the same time, and that's maybe hard to manage for somebody. I also think, again, the activity numbers are limited and bottlenecked because you're in a sequence and you're not doing as many things on one side of the channel, which prevents all the other ones from happening. I mean, how many SDRs do we manage, or if you're an SDR yourself, when you come in the office and you look at your task, and how many overdue tasks do you currently have? And it's
oh
usually
my
a lot
goodness.
all the time. So if that's happening, your sequences are probably not working.
Yeah. I feel like one of the things I've seen with it is so often people, and this could be wrong, but one of the things I've come across is that most of the buyers that we're going after, they have sales team, and we're going especially for folks in revenue generation. They know some of the plays we're going to run before we run those plays. And I
Right.
think that's also that predictability also makes it very like, I'm going to ignore these emails because they know what else is going to be coming along. But when you have like, I like the idea of this burst because it's not like I'm annoying, like you said, it's really just trying to find your preference.
Hmm.
Didn't know if you're an email guy, if you like your steak medium rare or whatever,
Right.
like I'm giving you all the options, pick one. All right, cool.
Well, I
You
think
don't
that's
want steak at
step
all.
one, right? Is to get the
Yeah.
engagement going, and then there's a whole nother level of communication. We could probably do another podcast on this. Is just how do you actually be relevant in the product that you're offering, and how do you get them engaged and handle their questions and associate rebuttals and objections when you're communicating with them to get them actually moving forward through the pipeline. But I think it all starts right now specifically is,
Hmm.
I think where people feel threatened, or where SDRs or AEs are feeling like, their job is getting, being taken by AI, is like, that's what we need to set ourselves apart of, is just starting the conversation.
So starting a convo. So do you think you answered the thesis here, the statement? Cold calling isn't dead.
Hmm.
It's very well alive. The method we go about doing that start with some a burst of activities that are going to be able to be relevant to that individual at the very jump. Not necessarily personalizing, talking about the school they went to, but personalizing about maybe a challenge or something that's relevant to them right now. If you see them hiring, then maybe that's relevant to me as a HR director. And then coming back down to it is once you get that conversation, phone calls becomes way easier. Get engagement, phone calls become way easier. And then you could probably use some more of your sequences from the back end at that point. Anything I missed on that?
No, I think that absolutely nails it. I think going back to the first part, when we say phone calling is dead, here's the reality: it is dead if you're bad at doing it. right? If you're not, and we have to really look at that, because a lot of people, unfortunately, weren't trained appropriately, or thinking that 30, 40 calls is just going to do it these days. It's really not. And you have to be really
Yeah.
good at cold calling in order for us to say it's not dead. It's dead for people who just, half-ass it, or not putting in the numbers, or don't know what to say really, really, really well when someone says something. I mean, the one thing that, we train our reps is there's 10 objections that you'll ever deal with, ever. So if you know exactly what someone's going to say to you before you say to them, you're playing a game where you know all the rules and they don't even know they're in a game, right? Like, how cool of an advantage is that? So if you know exactly what someone's going to say to you before they say it, you literally can tell the future, and you have a pretty good way of winning if you knew what the future was, right? So that's
Oh man,
exactly
amen.
how I think cold calling needs to be really looked at, is you need to really get good at it, and then therefore it's no longer dead.
How do I find what those 10 objections may be for my business or industry?
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me a call, and I can take you through
He got you, guys. He got you.
them. No, yeah. I mean, how do you find them out? Honestly, it's a whole training program that I do, and then take people through it. But I can absolutely get that over to your audience if you like me to, and we can send that over.
Awesome, guys. Well, you heard it here. Gabe, if folks are listening and they're like, okay, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, I'm interested in connecting with them, what is the best way for them to go about connecting with you?
Yeah, so like my channel of preference is definitely LinkedIn. It's where I'm at most of the time throughout the day when it comes to connecting with people directly. So I'm hyper responsive on LinkedIn, and of course, if you have any company questions, our website's really good as well. But if you want to connect, just shoot me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll definitely be in response to that.
Love this. Short, sweet, straight to the point. Cold calling isn't dead. Love the theory. Connect back with him on LinkedIn. Gabe, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show today, helping us to be able to improve our pipe.
You're the man, Donald. Thanks.
Hey, that was Gabe. If you haven't connected with him as of yet, please free to go ahead and do so on LinkedIn. That's his connection point of choice. He likes it. I like LinkedIn. You like LinkedIn. Take advantage of LinkedIn. Now, if you haven't done so already, check out his website. We also have that in the show notes, as well as connect with him and ask him about those 10 questions. I'm sure he'll give you some ideas and some insights on that. We just didn't have enough time to go into it. And hey, if you really loved him having him on this podcast, tell him to come back on TSC, and I'm sure he'll love to come back for round 2. Listen, our show is designed to help you to build pipeline. We want you to build not just pipeline with random deals. We want you to build pipeline with quality deals. I want you to try the strategies that you learned from Gabe today. Drop him or myself a message on LinkedIn, and both of us, and say, DK, Gabe, I tried it. This was my result. We'd love to hear from you. I believe very strongly in starting off with LinkedIn, starting off with that social aspect when it comes to building pipe. We've seen it to be very effective for us. And if you're interested in our LinkedIn prospecting course, check out the information down below. Go to salesevangelist.com/LinkedIn. As always, we want you to thrive. We want you to check out our sponsors. We want you to use the tools they're giving you because they're going to help you make more money. We want you to be able to raise your level of thinking, go out, do big things, but most importantly, want you to make some money. As always, till next time.